afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Present?
Vice Chair Lesner-Buxton, Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Nielsen,
Present.
Commissioner Price, Commissioner Ramsey.
Present.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, thanks very much. And written public comment, I did not see anything come across that's not related to the trees. Do you have anything? Because I didn't see anything come across at all. But is there anything, there was no written comment, was there, that came through?
I did not receive anything.
Okay, thanks. All right, that takes us to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time will be 15 minutes. I do not have any speaker slips. Do you have any speaker slips? No. Okay, do we have anybody online?
We do have someone online. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand feature, and I will call on you and you'll be able to speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. We have no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to our Youth Council report. Come on up. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Carlos Vasquez. I was recently elected chair of the Santa Barbara Youth Council, and I will be providing an update on behalf of the Youth Council today. So, the Youth Council resumed meeting on Monday, August 25th. After a short break for summer, we have welcomed 3 new members, and we've already started working on some exciting projects for the fall. So, starting with recruitment, we are looking for new members to join the council. Our recruitment process follows the same schedule as other city advisory boards, and applications are due Friday, October 3rd. So far, we've received 3 applications for 6 open voting spots, 2 for Santa Barbara High School, 3 for Dos Pueblos High School, and 1 for a local private school. We'll be holding interviews on Monday, October 6th, and Monday, October 20th. We especially encourage Dos Pueblos High School students to apply, as we want to have an even representation between local high schools. We also have 5 non-voting junior high positions available. These do not follow the clerk's office process, so if you're in junior high and interested, we recommend coming to one of the meetings to meet the youth council. This is also serves as a good way to, as it's kind of an introductory, so that these students go on to later serve as voting members. Then to the open space element, on September 15th, we had a special presentation from City Planner Jillian Ferguson about the open space element. We learned more about what land is protected, how equal access to the beaches and parks works, and ways to keep these areas sustainable. And overall, we just appreciated the opportunity to give input and ask questions about this process. We'd like to thank Commissioner Nielsen for updating us about the open space element, which inspired us to ask for this presentation. And next to the Youth Making Change grant. So we're applying again for the Youth Making Change grant. Last year we were awarded $2,000, which helped us host our most successful Youth Speak Out yet. We are already planning for the 2026 Youth Speak Out and have started discussing more important teen issues that we want to highlight during this event. Last Saturday, we had about the 2025 Creek Week. We had September 20th, the Youth Council joined Creek Week for the Coastal Cleanup Day at East Beach. We started near the skate park and collected trash all the way down to the chromatic gate. Last year we picked up 28.5 pounds of trash, and this year we broke our record with 37.3 pounds. This event has been a great way for us to get our friends involved and help keep our beaches clean, as well as really just creating bonds between youth council members. Lastly, to the trunk or treat, we are working with the Santa Barbara Police Activities League, or PAL, to host our 2025 trunk or treat. It will be held at Spencer Adams Law on Thursday, October 30th, between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. 7:30 p.m., sorry. We are looking forward to lots of participation from city departments and local nonprofits. So please join us in voting for the best decorated trunk. And then, yeah, that's all I have today. Thank you for your time. And I'm also open to ask any questions if you guys have any. Thank you.
All right, wow, that's a lot. And congratulations on being named chair.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll do a great job. You're off to a great start. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Ramsey.
Hi, Mr. Vasquez. Thank you so much for stepping up and taking the initiative to do this. It sounds like we only have 3 of the 6 seats kind of available. Is there anything extra we can do to make sure we have a full board?
I'm not too sure in terms of what you guys can do. So far right now, we're trying to reach out to different local high schools, the different like student governments there. But in terms of what y'all can do, I'm not sure, but I can, follow up if there's something that I could think of.
Great. Sounds like a social push would help too on media. So
Yeah, definitely.
thank you for your work.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Yeah, no, I mean, I echo the, this is such a great opportunity. It should be really hotly contested.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do to help, anything, social media, reaching out to student governments is a great idea. I mean, because you're hitting like-minded individuals right there. Let's see if we can give you guys some competition.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. All right. That takes me to the Commissioner Committee assignment reports. I think I will start on my right with Commissioner Ramsey.
Nothing to report.
Okey-doke. Thanks, Commissioner Price.
Nothing to report. We were an off-cycle month, but you should be hearing more about the golf club operations as agenda item number 6.
Absolutely. Commissioner Aldana.
Nothing to report today.
Commissioner Nilsson.
Carlos gave a great update. I think if we do want to make a push for recruitment for the Youth Council, there was an Instagram post by the city that advertises the open spots for the Youth Council. If anybody is on Instagram, they can forward that around, get the word out on behalf. We can obviously forward the YouTube link for this meeting where Carlos is talking around. And then in the last Youth Council meeting, they gave an offer to us that if there's anything for the summer programs that come up next year or any activities that we're looking to push recruitment for and engagement in, that they can post those within their circles and around their schools and help us promote as well. So they gave us that offer. We can take them up on.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I follow on Instagram and haven't seen that, but I'll have a look. Commissioner Clark.
I did attend the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting. We'll talk about all the trees we talked about during that meeting, during this meeting later.
All right, thanks. And the Park Foundation meeting was canceled this past month, so I also have nothing to report. Which takes us to Commission and Staff Communications. Director Zachary.
Chair McGill, no specific additional communications.
Okay, thank you. And that then takes us to ceremonial items.
Commissioners, we have one Parks and Recreation Department employee that was recognized by the city administrator on September 9th for 5 years of service. Alejandro Medrano is one of our 2 irrigation systems technicians. He's been with the city for 5 years, as I mentioned. He's been in this role more recently, was promoted from a grounds worker position when we had a recent retirement. We have 30, Simone's not here to correct me, more than 30 irrigation systems in our parks and different areas. Many of them are 30 years old, including the one at the golf course, but Corsico will talk about that if they need to. So having 2 irrigation systems technicians is really, really important to both keep them functioning, but also more importantly, to manage our water use, because the cost of water is significant. People experience it in their residential bills. Parks and Recreation experiences it in its recreation water use bills, which can total $85,000 a month. So if you think about that, the importance of being able to irrigate our parks, but to do so as efficiently as possible while trying to conserve water is something that's really important for our operations.
Yes, well, congratulations on 5 years, and it's a really important role. I mean, Simone was talking about some of that when we did the Alice Keck tour last month, and it's kind of a daunting job, so I'm glad that there's at least 2. I bet you would love to have more. All right, and that takes us to the summary of council actions. Director Zachary. We've seen them here. Does anybody have any, I guess the only question I would have, was there any specific input on the draft goals that you would like to share with us at this point?
Chair McGill and commissioners, the council received the proposed work plan, very similar to the presentation, exactly the same presentation the commission received, supported moving forward with it, provided some additional input on stakeholder groups and ways to get the word out, particularly when we start our community outreach initiatives, which will probably begin in late spring and carry through the fall of next year.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Okay. All right, then that takes us to the minutes, and we have 2 that I think we need to do separately. So the first recommendation is that we waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 27th, 2025. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have Aldana and Ramsey, and let's take that one to a vote. I assume there's no discussion. Okay. And you're allowed to vote.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second is that we waive the reading and approve the minutes of the special meeting of August 27th, 2025, which was the Alice Keck site visit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Price and Nielsen, and we can go to a vote. Ooh. All right, thank you very much. And now we're over to trees. Welcome, Mr. Slack.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. First, Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to review is a request to remove a total of 17 trees. That's 13 weeping red gum eucalyptus, 3 lemon scented gum eucalyptus, and 1 cook pine. These are all located within the front setback of the property at 3139 Cliff Drive. The applicant's requesting removal of these trees in hopes of beginning comprehensive improvements to the property. So it's a pretty unique parcel if you're able to do a site visit. It's rather wild. It's been vacant for many years, and prior to that was the site of an old nursery, apparently. And some background on the site, the nursery used a herbicide that's now present in the soil, and it requires extensive soil remediation. So a very, very large amount of soil has to be taken off the property, disposed of correctly, and new soil needs to be brought back in before any further improvements can be performed on site. And these trees just simply can't be preserved in response to the remediation efforts. The depth and just quantity of the soil compromises the trees that are in place, so protection measures aren't present. This also extends to trees on the interior of the lot. There was supplemental information that showed a bunch of red X's that were delineated both within the front setback and the interior of the property, which shows kind of the extent of the contamination on site. The committee reviewed the application. We did a site visit, looked at the trees. It's worth noting that there's a bunch of other trees on the site too. There's a ton of really small diameter, what we would call probably young trees or saplings that aren't large enough to be regulated. So those trees also will be removed from the site if the commission approves the application. So it was the opinion of the committee that it was a reasonable and practical development in terms of making progressive steps towards remediation of the soil and potentially utilizing the site. The applicant provided a landscape plan that showed a total of 55 replacement trees being kind of planted strategically throughout the property. It was a combination of native trees. 17 of those were considered replacement trees or offset trees for the 17 trees that were being proposed for removal within the front setback. And the additional trees the intent is to plant them if the project receives all necessary approvals through the planning process. Similar to the rationale for removal, the committee determined that the replacement ratio was adequate and ultimately made a recommendation to approve the removal essentially as proposed on the condition, or with the finding that a reasonable and practical development of the property necessitates the removal of the trees.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? And when they recommended approval, it's as part and parcel of the approval, it's with the 17 offset trees as not a conditional approval, but basically approve as presented?
Yeah, Chair McGill and Commissioners, that's correct. I think we're trying to do a better job of like shoring that language up so that when it hits the commission, it's kind of clean. We did talk about that. So this is an active planning, it's going through the planning process, and there was talk about the trees, would the trees get planted, would the trees not get planted, things like that. And so as that project moves through the planning process, that landscape plan that was submitted would eventually get approved, and so then that kind of conditions all of the trees to be planted. So I think that's why the committee didn't specifically call out the 17, but if the commission wanted to, in support of the motion, that would be more than adequate.
Okay, great, thanks. Commissioner Ramsey, and followed by Commissioner Price.
Mr. Slack, I'm generally in favor and agree with the street tree committee here. Just a question, what does this dotted yellow line signify? I haven't been able to figure it out.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, I don't know either. Sometimes, the long and short of this is sometimes it's really easy to get like a really pretty picture of the tree, and then you get a site like this where you can't really capture it. And so sometimes we'll take a snip of the landscape plan, or in this case, we just took a snip of the one of the images that was pulled out of the arborist report to kind of represent the site. I don't know what that is. I mean, they're calling the line like to sort of differentiate between like insignificant shrubbery and trees, but it, it clearly doesn't do a very good job of that.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Commissioner Price.
Thank you. Mr. Slack, in the tree removal application, it specifies that this is going through the single-family design board for project design approval. We, of course, have the landscape plans, and then it also says at the very end, no development is proposed for the site. Does that last sentence jeopardize the landscape plan that we've received? Is that an omission or an oversight? Could you share a little bit of that?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, I believe as part of the current review, that landscape plan would get approved, and they're fully planning on planting these trees. I think this is just, we're seeing one small slice of what's a very complicated planning application. So, and they were planning, both the property owner, planning staff that were managing it, not city staff, but hired planners to push the project through, as well as the landscape architect. So I feel really confident that the landscape plan gets approved as part of this review process, and then the trees would go in because it's been approved.
Thank you.
Okay, did you just, okay. I have one probably slightly off-the-wall question, but this is the third, maybe the fourth time we've been up to this property. I think it's a third in my time, isn't it? And I just kind of got, and I was like, well, it looks the same. I guess my question is, it seems kind of odd to me that this is just kind of being dribbled out as opposed to doing it as a one-off. Is there any particular reason for that?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, that's a great question. I think you are correct. It's 3 times that we've seen this property. So we did confirm with the applicant that the previous reviews essentially don't count. This supersedes all the previous reviews that the Street Tree Advisory and the Commission have looked at it. I think it speaks to the complexity and some of the challenges that are on site for the project. So despite seeing it a couple times for a couple different things, essentially those are null and void. And
Okay.
what we see today is like a fresh review that's currently in the planning process.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, the soil remediation thing seems to be a pretty unique case. Can you elaborate on how that became to be true and kind of why that is? These are just forever chemicals that they have no other way to deal with, and we got to take out basically a small forest and replace it in order to address that situation.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I'm not sure. I think it's past use practice. Like they know that there was a nursery there. I believe we have planning staff that might be able to speak in further detail on the call or, available to answer questions. It's not uncommon. I would say like maybe Director Zachary can speak to this a little bit better too, but there's oftentimes like soil sampling that has to happen. And then if you identify problems, then they require remediation. We've dealt with that with development of city parks. Like Ortega Park, for example, is known to have like contaminated soil. And when that park's developed, that will require a very similar process. Chase Palm Park expansion also has very trace soil contaminants. And the last time that we planted trees there, we had to put that soil in barrels and cart it off and put new soil in and use the acronym is HAZWAPER. I have no clue what that means in terms of full language, but it's just part of the process and it's directly related to soil samples. I don't recall the herbicide that was there, but it's long been out of the industry. Some of the old arborists on the committee knew it, but it's not been used for a significant number of years.
Thank you, Mr. Slack. And so it seems like a fair assumption that if it was a nursery, that's pervasive, that the soils testing was, through all of the areas that these trees are being requested to be removed, that it wasn't, I'll say, like a localized corner of the property that we were then over-applying to the rest of the property.
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, it's essentially the bulk of the lot. And again, if the planning staff could probably speak to that. I don't know the volume of soil, but it's extensive.
Thank you,
So-
Mr. Slack.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, this is a planning discussion, and if it's been determined that the soil needs to be remediated, I think it's safe to assume that it is pervasive throughout the site if it was a nursery. And if, for whatever reason, remediation has to occur, it has to occur. And unfortunately, what appears to be probably largely volunteer trees have grown up on the site, not intentionally planted for any reason other than that. Mr. Slack is correct. Santa Barbara had an earthquake 100 years ago, and in order to deal with debris, it was spread everywhere. You will notice in the advice of council actions, we are undertaking a very, very detailed assessment of the contamination at Ortega Park, because it will need to be remediated before any further work can happen in that park. It was a dump site for the earthquake, and we're at that point in where we are in the world where we pay attention to those things now, and maybe 50 years ago, nobody did. So there's a lot more restrictions. Whatever the development potential is of this site, my guess is if they have to do excavation, they have to know what the soil is in order to be able to get permission to dispose of it. And so they have to do soil testing for that, and then it just goes on and on from there.
Thank you both for the information.
Yeah, it's pretty coastal too, even though it's high. All right. I think that's it for questions, and I do not have any speaker slips for public comment. Do we have anybody online?
Yes, we do have someone online, and their hand is raised.
Okay.
Linda Blackburn, when I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Welcome.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Linda Blackburn with RRM Design Group. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the property. We are in support of STAC's recommendation to the Commission, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, well, thank you. You have 1 minute and 40 seconds left. No, it's all right. No. All right. I think with that, I'm open for any further discussion or a motion as appropriate. Were you trying to push your button?
Yeah, I was saying I'd make a motion.
Okay, go. Commissioner Clark, it didn't.
I'm prepared to make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to remove the trees at 3139 Seacliff as proposed. Do I have to name all of them?
And the as proposed would cover the 17 replacements? Okay.
That's it.
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. If we don't have any additional discussion.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
the-
yes.
The finding, based on the finding that it's a reasonable development of property.
Yeah. You could also do health and safety arguably in this one with the remediation. All right. Okay, and the motion passes, and that takes us to Braemar, which is supposed to be in Scotland.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a large South African coral tree. This is located within the setback of the property at 3205 Braemar Drive. The applicant is requesting removal of this tree also due to improvements of the property. They're proposing to essentially put a garage on the end of the structure, add a new realigned driveway, and it's in direct conflict with the existing tree. The committee reviewed the application. There were supplemental landscape plans that did a really good job of showing the proposed improvements as well as proposed replacement trees if the removal was supported. The committee spent a lot of time looking at the tree. It's a really large, example of South African coral tree. There was a supplemental arborist report. Maintenance practices have been less than stellar over the years. It's just really been aggressively pruned, but the canopy has filled back in, and it is a large canopy shade tree in its current form. So the committee kind of struggled with that. I think looking at what was proposed, there's a lot of real structural changes to the home and the driveway realignment, and understanding that from their opinion was a practical development of the property. It was really hard to imagine a way where you could retain this tree and still make these improvements to a property. So after quite a bit of discussion and review, there was consensus that they did support the removal of this tree. The landscape architect presented it at the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting and again submitted these landscape plans and drew specific focus to the proposed 3 replacement trees in the general location of where this coral tree is, which would be offset of where the new driveway is being proposed. And kind of in a shift from what we typically see, the committee was really supportive and felt really strongly about there being those 3 trees to offset this large canopy tree. So a lot of times we see and have had conversations even at the commission level about just a standard 1-to-1 ratio. I think in this limited example with a really large shade tree and an emphasis and a willingness to plant 3 new trees to offset the existing tree, the committee felt pretty strongly about ensuring that took place. So they voted to approve the removal of the tree on the condition that 3 new trees are planted that can achieve a minimum mature height at 20 feet at maturity, and also identified that the commission could use the finding that a reasonable and practical development of the property requires removal of the tree.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Slack. Does anybody have any questions? It's a very cool tree, but I see the issues with it. Okay, if nobody has any questions, I have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
No, there's no one online.
Okay, we have no questions, we have no public comment. If there is no discussion, I am ready to entertain a motion. If nobody else wants to make a motion, I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the removal of the coral tree at 3205 Braemar Drive on the condition that 3 replacement trees that can reach a minimum height of 20 feet be planted as replacements.
I'll
The
second.
finding being that it's a reasonable and practical development.
And I'll second.
And we have a motion and we have a second. Thank you. I'll go ahead and take a vote. All righty. And that takes us to the master plan trees.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, yes, we have a couple street tree species designation changes for the commission. The first is what we would call olive Calle Cesar Chavez. So it's multiple blocks, kind of beginning at Cabrillo Boulevard and heading north. Relatively small parkways, some coastal pressure because we're right there like at Cabrillo Boulevard. And the original or previous designated species was a little Jim magnolia, which we've kind of talked about with the commission as having pest-related issues. It's also a thirstier tree, so the idea was to revisit this designation and kind of add things that made a little bit more sense from a water use perspective and kind of keep building upon that biodiversity on street. So the committee and staff talked about lots of options. We settled on 4 as a group, and so the committee recommended the use of the gold medallion tree, the Catalina cherry, a sweet shade, and also a New Zealand Christmas tree as the new designations for Olive Calle Cesar Chavez.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Does the sweet shade, is that a trumpet-like flower? I'm just kind of, the flower, is that like a trumpet or is that I'm just trying to get a close look at the tree, sorry. Okay, never mind. It's a bit of a off the wall. Okay, if there's no questions, I have,
Oh, it's not a question. I just thought it would be interesting for people who don't get to go to the STAC meeting every month to know what the WUCOL's rating is in terms of water usage, because the Street Tree Advisory Committee takes almost everything into account when they discuss tree designations.
would you care to explain WUCOL's?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, sure, briefly, it's the water use classification of landscape species. It's just a statewide database sorted by region. Each region had sort of a cohort of plant experts that worked through thousands of plants that work well in the region, and they defined a water use category for all of them. And so Santa Barbara's, really committed to water conservation, so we're trying to use low or very low water use plants in general. And then the city has an ordinance that actually requires all commercial development to have low or very low exclusively, essentially on the property. So very progressive step forward in terms of like what's used in the landscape and their water requirements.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I don't have any further questions posted. I don't have any speaker slips. I assume there's no one online, and we have Commissioner, is there anybody online? No, okay. Commissioner Price?
Yes, I may have missed it, so I apologize if I did. What is the proposed WUCOL's for this redesignation, if it's presently moderate?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, I think that, I don't have it right in front of me. I think that 3 of them are low or very low, and 1 does hit the medium.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Aldana.
Okay, so this is Calle Cesar Chavez. At any point, will it continue going north to Salsipuedes?
Chair McGill, Commissioner O'Donnell, that's a great question. I think that there's that really unique gap there where there's no parkways, and then the parkways kind of pick up again just north of Haley. So that designation actually has been recently modified in the last year or 2. So we kind of viewed them as uniquely separate sections of the street. Whereas we're going to take a look next month at Nopal, and since there's really no breaks there, we're going to look at that like continuously. But in this, we looked at it in essentially 2 parts.
Got it, thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions and no discussion, I'm ready for a motion. Commissioner Nielsen?
I'll move to adopt the gold medallion tree, the Catalina cherry, the sweet shade, and New Zealand Christmas tree as new designations for the blocks of Calle Cesar Chavez as listed.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll second that.
And we have a second, so assuming no further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. Okay, and that takes us to Channel Drive.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation is to designate street tree species for Channel Drive. So if you're able to see the map link or go out there, it's a very, very small section of street just east of the Cabrillo Roundabout, which looks fantastic. It's just, they just redid it. And there's a new development proposed for that vacant lot that's essentially between the train tracks and Channel Drive. And the landscape architect reached out to us to find out what the species was. And interestingly enough, there was never a designation, and it's not hard to understand why, because it's a completely unimproved area. So this new development will improve the right-of-way, and we'll end up with tree wells or continuous parkway. And we worked with the landscape architect to determine the width. So we discussed species that would work, same kind of thing, looking at trees that would function well in the, with the available rooting volume and parkway width, and then the coastal pressure. And after discussion, the committee recommended the use of the primrose tree and also the flame tree for all of Channel Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Commissioner Aldana.
So for Channel Drive, will that just be one side, or is it going to be both sides, or?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, that project will just develop like that vacant parcel on the north side of Channel Drive, and there's no other planned improvements for the southern side.
But it will continue to go where the bike lane is?
I can clarify only by saying is that there's that vacant parcel, and then right where the road bends is actually city limits, so there won't be any improvements past that point either.
Okay, so only in front of the cemetery, so to speak.
Essentially, yes.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? I have no speaker slips. Is there anybody online?
No, there's
Okay.
no one online.
Thank you. And if that's the case, I'm ready for a motion. Commissioner Price?
I'd like to move to adopt the street tree master plan species designation change as written.
Okay, I'll second it. All right. Go ahead and. Thank you very much. All right, that's passed. And thank you very much, Mr. Slack. See you next month. And that takes us to the director's report.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, many of you have heard Chair McGill talk about the series that the Park Foundation hosted at the recently renovated band shell this summer. We also had our recreation staff take a stab at finding ways to engage the community in free events. And they put together on fairly short notice 4 weeks of family-friendly performing arts series on Thursday. We are in what would have been week 4 of 4, but it really is 3 of 4 because, if you recall, it rained last Thursday, much to our surprise. So they've been held at between 6 and 7:30. There's one tomorrow night, which is the Salty Strings, a 5-piece string band, and then the Gunpowder Poetry Group, which was to perform on September 18th, I believe will be there on October 4th. We've had some great response. I went to the first one. I missed the second one, the theater company one, but it's a little opportunity to do something in the middle of the week, early enough in the evening, just to test the waters and find ways to engage local performers in using the space. So that's something that's been successful, and we hope to continue it along with other activities that the Park Foundation may want to pursue next year. Although not in your report, but we anticipate the irrigation and lighting project for the park will begin in November, so it will not be available. Plus, the days will be quite short, and it'll be harder to get out. But hopefully when we restart a series in the spring, not only Will the irrigation system be replaced after many decades? We will have pole lights in the park that will also improve park safety and access and the opportunity to use the bandshell into the early dusk and early evening rather than be solely rely on sunlight. Carlos mentioned the trunk or treat event. I strongly encourage the commission to wander over there if you have a moment on Thursday, October 30th. The department works in partnership with the Police Activities League and the Santa Barbara Youth Council. It is a fun, fantastic event. We have representatives, obviously, from the police department, fire department, library, sustainability and resilience. Kids and families come out in costumes. I think our department won for the event that we hosted last time. It's really, really great. Parking is terrible, so don't plan to park near because it gets quite full. But if you have a moment even to walk through, it's really quite a fun event. And then also with Halloween, our adapted recreation program always hosts an annual Halloween dance, and this year it is on Halloween, which is Friday, from 7 to 9 p.m. in the Carrillo Ballroom. And it's something it doesn't have since 1975, so we're coming on our 50th year of hosting this type of activity. And we have a DJ, refreshments, usually somewhere around 100 participants. There is a small admission fee. And then World Dance for Humanity, who does their popular thriller flash mob, will be in attendance as well. So you're welcome to join if you'd like to do that too. And Julie Thomas is the contact for that event.
All right, thanks. Good deal for all of the above. It's really nice to see the bandshell being used so much, so quickly from coming on. I mean, that just seems to be becoming really successful.
Yeah, I think we are well on our way, knock on wood, to hopefully having a regular series at the bandshell, similar to the summer concerts, and then hopefully not just in the summer, of course, finding ways to use it throughout the year, and supporting a variety of local musicians and arts groups, and also begin to bring in youth groups, because that's really important too, as a great venue for the community to both experience something fun, but also be the leadership of something fun.
Okay, thanks. And that takes us to actually the last agenda item, which is an update on the golf club.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, Tina Nelson, who is our business manager, will kick off the presentation, and then we have representatives from Corsco that are going to talk about what they've been doing at the golf course. The Santa Barbara is really fortunate to have a 100-acre golf facility right in the middle of the city. It's not something that you would commonly find. Tina will go over a little bit of the history, the challenges that we've had over the decades, and actually a look at where we are today, which is in a pretty good position to provide this service to the community.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners.
Welcome.
Thank you. So the background for the golf club is, as Director Zachary mentioned, the municipal golf course was established in 1958. It was operated by the Parks and Recreation Department until contracted to be operated by Corsco in 2016, although the department still maintains oversight and budget management as part of the department. The golf club and golf course provides recreation and community value for every age group in the community and has done so for generations. And it operates as an enterprise fund. Prior to 2016, the golf course was facing financial challenges. Rounds in the 1980s began to decline steadily. And by 2008, the reserves had dropped below policy thresholds. Between 2009 and 2010, there was 17% drop in rounds played at the golf course. And between 2010 and 2016, the golf course continued to realize rising costs and an increase in local competition, and was directed by City Council during that time frame to continue maintaining the golf course as an enterprise fund. And so the process began to consider other options to continue that operational model. As in 2016, the golf course was facing fund depletion and needed to explore more viable options for operations of the golf course. So the transition to the management model started in 2010 as the city began to explore alternative operating models. And that was done through public and advisory input. There was meetings held and through the commission, through the Golf Advisory Committee, the Finance Committee. There was a lot of work done to really do the research to find out what options were available. And it began the request for proposals process to select a golf course operator, and that happened in 2015. And at that time, Corsco was selected to be the golf course operator and began managing course operations in 2016. At the same time, Mulligan's, a concessionaire that's been at the golf course for 30 some odd years, had a renewal of their contract at the same time and continue to manage the restaurant concessions at that site. The city does retain ownership and oversight and policy setting and works very closely with Corsco, our partners with the golf course in operations, and enjoy a very good relationship in delivering a very, very good customer value and experience to the Santa Barbara community and visitors. So between 2016 and 2025, early on and continually, the golf course does have ongoing challenges. Rising water costs continue to be a challenge. We've seen 10% increases in the price of water for multiple years in a row now. There has been quite a bit of deferred maintenance as the golf course was operating at a deficit and didn't have the resources to complete much needed capital projects. And climate and staffing challenges throughout fires and debris flow, heavy rains that we've experienced in the last few years, and the fires. And then in 2019, we had a 5-week closure. In 2020, we had a 5-week closure to COVID-19, the pandemic, which while closing the operations for 5 weeks did have its impacts, as the golf course was able to reopen, it turned out to be actually a benefit to the golf course as rounds surged to record highs after reopening and saw the highest number of paid rounds in many, many years, is, going back, prior to 2010 with 79.5 thousand paid rounds of golf in that 1 year alone. Between 2021 and 2025, the revenues have continued to exceed $4 to $5 million annually. And the surplus we not only restored reserves to threshold policy, we also established, the city was able to secure a reserve surplus. So the enterprise fund contract model is the golf course is self-sustaining. So all revenues generated by the golf course are reinvested in the golf course. It pays for staffing, operations, capital improvements, and also sustains the reserves. So all of that money is generated by the golf course, and the golf course does not receive any general fund dollars to help operate that. So what the city receives all of the revenues directly into city bank accounts. Corsco manages all the operations and pays all of the operating expenses directly, and then submits back to the city for reimbursement for staffing, course operations, and capital improvements. The fiscal year 2026 operating revenue budget is 3 parts. It's the golf fees and charges, which is the lion's share of the revenue, $4.8 million. Because of the revenue and the surplus and the reserves, we do have some interest income that's generated. It's projected at $174,000 for fiscal year 26, and the restaurant concession is projected at $242,000 for a total $5.2 million revenue generation for this fiscal year. For 2026 operating expense, there is some expense associated with the city oversight. That's the staffing that supports the golf course, contract management, capital projects, and finance, deposit overhead, things like that. And then there are the rest of the fee. The two largest expenditures that we see are the golf course maintenance costs, which is a large portion of the staff that operates the golf course, and the water costs and all the maintenance costs. And then secondarily, you'll see that we have $1.6 million in capital outlays expense for this fiscal year, which is a significant increase over years past. And then the rest of it is divided up between management fees, maintenance fees. We have cost of goods sold, cost of lessons, banquet fees, which would be when there's a tournament on the course and they select to have meals provided from the restaurant on site. We charge for that through the tournament and then pay back the concessionaire, and operation fees for $5.7 million. That's a net budget. We have slightly projected $474,000 deficit, which will be offset by reserve surplus as by design as we move forward with significant capital infrastructure improvements this year. And the capital budget, as you can see for this year, is $1.67 million. There is a players improvement fund. That is where $1 from every full-priced paid round of golf is specifically designated for course improvements at the golf course, and we survey golfers. We survey, the Golf Advisory Committee provides their recommendations, Coursco provides their recommendations, and then we take all of those recommendations for specifically for course improvements, not infrastructure improvements, and designate capital projects. So that $65,000 will be recommended and then designated for course improvements this fiscal year. We have some design projects going on for repaving, ongoing tree replacements. You know, as trees die or fall down, we replace them with new trees, and there's costs associated with removing trees that are no longer thriving and have reached the end of their life cycle. Maintenance road is a big project that we have been working on for quite some time. Tee-box renovations, reconstruction of greens and bunkers, rental club replacements, and starting to go out and do some driving range redesign. And of course, as always, power turf equipment. That concludes my part of this presentation, and I will be inviting Tom Bugbee, the Chief Operating Officer for Coursco, to deliver his presentation, and we will entertain questions at the...
You want to wait until everything's finished for questions?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. Thanks.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, thanks for having us today. It's always exciting to get here and be able to give a chance to give an update to everybody. It's been a great partnership here over the years, and so a lot of success, and so we're glad to share some of that with you and then also answer any questions as we go through. So a little bit about Coursco. We were founded in 1989. We have 46 courses under management. 38 of those are on the behalf of public agencies, so cities, counties, universities, flood control districts. You'd be surprised who owns golf courses out there. We operate in 8 states, but we are based here in California, just north of San Francisco, and about 2/3 of the courses under management are in California. So this is definitely our area of expertise. Next slide. 4 core values lead Coursco: financial performance, stakeholder communication, community programming, and environmental stewardship. And I'll spend a little bit of time going over each of those and specifically how it applies here at Santa Barbara. So first, financial performance. We use the term financial performance, not profit, and that's for a reason. Financial performance is different to every single one of our clients. Some of our private clients, it is profit, drive the biggest bottom line. Oftentimes in the public golf world, it's about making sure golf remains affordable and accessible while still maintaining its sustainability in the long term. And so financial performance is very important, and really you wouldn't be in business very long if you didn't focus on that. But here at Santa Barbara, it's been a great story. As alluded to earlier, there were some challenging times in the early years when we arrived. We're very proud of the work we were able to do in partnership with the city, and there's no question that COVID-19 was a blessing in disguise for the golf industry. I'll give a little bit of an update on that later when I talk a little bit about the outlook of the industry and where it stands right now. But as you can see, we've gotten up into the 70,000 rounds pretty consistently. Fiscal year 23 was one dip. Doesn't matter how good an operator you are, if you get a lot of rain, you're not going to do a lot of rounds. But outside of the weather impacts, we've maintained very kind of consistent levels of participation at the golf course over the last few years. Second is stakeholder communication. That goes pretty broad. This is stakeholder communication, right? Updating our clients on what is happening out at the golf course, but it also involves constant communication at the golf course itself. That could be what we call four-wall marketing, posters on the wall at the golf course, social media, email blasts, but also interacting directly with groups like home clubs, men's and women's and seniors clubs out there, and making sure they're informed of what's happening out at the golf course. We have found that there's going to be challenges over the years. Having been in business for 36 years, not every year is perfect, but when you keep everybody informed, you keep transparency at the forefront, you're able to navigate those difficult times. And really, it's almost more important to bring forward the bad news faster than the good news. We have a saying inside the Corsco office, no surprises. If there's no surprises, you can work through almost anything in a partnership, and really stakeholder communication is a big piece of that. Community programming, this is something that really we found in our very early years. Our first golf course in 1989 was a municipal golf course. The reality is municipal golf courses are owned by the taxpayers. Only about 10% of the public, no matter where you go, and maybe it's 9%, maybe it's 11%, actually play golf. That means 90% of your taxpayers own the golf course and wouldn't use it if it was just for golf. Here at Santa Barbara, you have the luxury of a very busy restaurant, so there is higher participation out there at the facility, but we find other ways to bring the public out. We do non-golf events, we do what we call non-traditional golf events out at the golf course, and we're able to attract new users to the facility that wouldn't use it otherwise, and all of a sudden it doesn't become kind of that taboo thing out there. Instead, they see the benefit of the city having the golf course. So you can see up here, like the Glow Ball event is a great example of a non-traditional golf event. You get people out there that aren't what you would consider your core golfers using that. We just recently, on the 20th, had a movie night out at the golf course. We had well over 200 people attend, and I will tell you, a lot of kids, a lot of families, and we don't necessarily measure every person that comes in the door, but probably less than half of those make up our regular golfers. These are truly people using the facility just for this purpose. And so we're very proud of that work. It's very important. We do that at all of our golf courses. One of the ways we manage our golf courses is each one is independent. It's not a playbook. And so when it comes to community events, while we require our golf courses to do it, we let our on-site management teams pick the events that they're passionate about, because we learned early on when the on-site team's passionate, it goes well. If you just hand them a piece of paper and say, this is what you have to do, a little bit less enthusiasm, much lower success. Environmental stewardship is one of our core values. Our founder attended the first Earth Day. So environment was on the forefront of our minds long before it was popular to just put on a website. And so that has always been a core for us. During the interview process through the RFP, when we were learning a lot more about the golf course and just kind of Santa Barbara's general approach to the environment and the strict IPM program that we would have to follow, it kind of matched really well for us. We are Audubon certified golf course. We received that in 2023. We participate regularly in the IPM meetings. We have a recycling program throughout the golf course, both front of the house and back of the house. Something that's not finalized, but we're excited and should be coming soon, is something called the First Green event. So the First Green is run by the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, and what they do is we partner with them to host school kids out at the golf course and learn about the STEM part of what we do out there. learn about the science that happens out on the golf course. We've done a lot of these at our other golf courses. This will be the first one at Santa Barbara. But it really is a special thing to see the kids out there, and they're learning about what we're doing out on the golf course. And it's just one more way to tell them, here's another career opportunity that's open to you out there, right? The maintenance of a golf course. So that really flows well into our environmental stewardship and kind of piggybacks on the community programming side as well. So the industry. So no question that 2019 was good for us. At the time, we thought it was probably a temporary spike. And what we found was it was probably just an accelerant on something that was going to happen anyway. There is a big move in, if you look at it generationally, to more participation on the golf course. And a lot of that comes from kind of what they would call the experience generation rather than the material things generation. And golf really has played very well into that. It's very social. It can be very family oriented. And so we're seeing participation continue to increase. Junior participation is at all-time highs across the industry. If you look at it, groups that we typically had a hard time attracting to golf, I've been doing this since 1994, we could never get women in big numbers out on the golf course, and we're seeing it at all-time record highs today. We're seeing more families out there. We're seeing that parents use it to connect with their adult kids, right? That you would otherwise have a hard time getting out onto the golf course. All of a sudden, there's something that they can do together. So the state of the industry is very, very strong, and the numbers indicate, look, there will always be economic downturns, and every industry goes down during those times. But if you look at the long-term run rate of golf, it's in a very, very good place as far as participation goes. And so, you know, I won't read you all the numbers up there on the screen, right? But every number and every indicator is that it's in a good place and that Santa Barbara is positioned well. I will say this, managing 46 courses, Santa Barbara's spike was as big as any, and their retraction from that spike is one of the smallest in our portfolio. So, you know, we're a little extra proud of the work that's been done here, and this golf course is very, very well positioned. Capital was always a big issue at golf courses. I will say Santa Barbara is not unique in that during the difficult times, which really could go from 01 through about 17, right? So a pretty long stretch of time there. It was easy to defer capital because there simply was no money. There simply was no resources. Cities were facing challenges at other places within their infrastructure. The thought of allocating capital to a golf course that potentially was breaking even or even losing money just wasn't even, not on anyone's radar. And so deferred capital. And so that's similar to what the story was here. But here, you know, I think the city really had a clear plan when we came in and started this partnership, that first build some reserves, then start chipping away at some of the things that were more obvious, such as equipment, and then start the projects. You know, we were able to work with them on some things that produced a return on investment. And so that will now fund some of the infrastructure projects that just need to happen moving into the future. They're not going to be as fun as some of the other projects, but very important to the long-term health of the facility. So having done a lot of this capital work, we're very excited about what's coming in the next couple of years. And with that, I will wrap up and be open to questions.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Nelson, you want to just take questions, either of you together? I mean, that seems like the most logical thing to do.
Yes.
It's okay. We will start with Commissioner Ramsey.
All right, thank you so much. I visited the course for the first time about a month ago and hit a bunch of range balls and thought it was a very pleasant experience. To me, reading this report, it seems that golf is a very cyclical sport. People interested in it at certain times. You said the last difficult time lasted around 16 years. So now that we're in the upswing and we're reinvesting, that's great. Love to see it. But the more people coming out, the more rounds we have, the more impacted the course gets. You know what I'm talking about. So my question is, while times are good, we're reinvesting, great. But how do we identify the down cycle if it is coming and protect the course's quality if we do see another 16-year lull?
Yeah, great question. I guess the easiest way to address that would be this. By handling some of these, first of all, you have the reserve fund, right? And so I think that's the best thing is The city chose to address that first, so that way there is some protection against that. Second is by getting some of these larger capital projects accomplished over the next few years, and being able to fund that as an enterprise fund, even if there was a once these are accomplished and we ride this strong wave, if there is a downturn, we can have a downturn and still be sustainable. Maybe not be able to invest in capital at quite the same rate, but still be operationally cash flow positive.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And then Ms. Nelson, looking through your report, what is Courseco's cut of this? I didn't see that in the specs. Is that the operator's fee that is referenced?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, yes, we pay reimburse Courseco all direct expenses, which includes salaries and operating costs. They do have an incentive fee, so if revenues exceed a certain threshold, there is an opportunity to get I believe it's 10%, 15% over a certain threshold. So we have in the budget around $200,000 if they achieve all sales goals and we have certain levels of customer satisfaction, then there is an incentive fee that's awarded to the operator. But other than that, it's direct expense. So the cost of the management fee, the accounting fee, we reimburse for that. And then, yes, maintenance.
So speak specifically to the management fee above and beyond direct costs.
The management fee is the fee that we pay to Courseco for Tom, for the Courseco staff that help oversee the golf course operations. And there's an accounting fee that we pay, that they have their accounting staff prepare all the invoices and sales tax and the different various operating costs. And so we pay a fee for their accounting of all those expenses that they send to us. So we have the management fee and the accounting fee for those expenses. And in addition, we have just the general administration, which is the general manager. We have the golf course superintendent. We have the maintenance staff, and then the pro shop employees that we pay that. And then other than that, it's direct expense for the water costs, the lease on the golf carts, any soil amendments, sand, fertilizer. You know, the cost of goods sold is a direct expense. So whatever we purchase for merchandise, we pay for that cost of goods sold. We reimburse the cost of lessons. So for the golf pros that instruct on the course, we reimburse the lesson expense.
So in the 2026 budget, what you'd be saying, things that are not actual reimbursement of costs, that are actually fees for the expertise, I'm looking at, it would be the management fees at about $712,000 and the general and admin at about $460,000.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, no.
Okay,
Wait,
okay,
no,
thanks.
So,
I just wanted to cut to, I think where Commissioner Ramsey's question is really more, basically for your expertise, what are you being
Yeah.
reimbursed?
So our base fee with accounting services, which is an optional service, is about $130,000 a year. That's what's paid directly to Courseco. And then we have an incentive fee, which in some years has been zero, and some years has been up to $200,000.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And then with the incentive fee, obviously you want more people to come out, which gives you more money in your pocket. But when it does hit that zero, are you required by our contracts at all to reinvest in the course? Or if we're having a down year, you're not getting that extra commission, you're not putting any more money back into the facility?
We are not required to put anything back into the facility. We did make a capital investment directly into the property of $100,000 at the beginning of the last contract.
And if I could add, Chair McGill and Commissioner Ramsey, Mr. Bugby alluded to the early years. And to be honest, they were inheriting or taking on a course that had really been not maintained well for a long time. And why is that? Because the department wasn't able to actually hire the staff to operate, to maintain the course as we transitioned to finding another operating model. So a lot of the initial work effort was getting the course to the place where it could be more sustained. And during those years when rounds weren't as high as we hoped they would be, we had to cut costs, and so we work really closely with Courseco to find ways to cut our expenses, like we do in our general fund. One thing that we didn't mention is, and I don't have the exact number, but the course was carrying a lot of debt 10 years ago. We are now debt-free. So in addition to building our reserves, in addition to investing in capital, we have paid off all our debt. The golf club had to borrow from the general fund to make improvements and carried a lot of debt and had it refinanced. All the things people do or companies do to stay afloat. So I think when you talk about what their incentives are, the incentives are to make sure we break even, and then of course more so that we exceed base revenue, because it does allow us to invest in infrastructure, and we have a lot of deferred maintenance at the course.
Thank you for that clarity. I really appreciate it. This is obviously one of the profitable areas in town, which is rare, so thank you for your hard work.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Aldana.
Yes, on I think it was the third or fourth slide, with the NOI, and if you could just give a little breakdown, on that chart.
Oh, yeah. We'll go back to that. So this represents kind of our side of the books, so to speak. So this doesn't include anything like city overhead, capital outlay, or the restaurant revenue, or the interest revenue. This would just be the kind of core golf course operations. And so the revenue is, just all the revenue that the golf course brings in, again, not including food and beverage. And then the net operating income is after the golf course direct expenses.
Got it. Okay, so going in the right direction.
And we are very proud, I'll take a moment to brag a little bit, right? If you look at 17 compared to 25, obviously we've gone up $2 million in revenue, but we've gotten $1 million of that through to the bottom line. We've been able to be efficient on the expense side, and really, if you consider water costs has gone up pretty drastically during that time period. All the other expenses, we've been able to do it pretty efficiently and effectively. Golf is very much a fixed cost business. We joke, but it's not that big a joke. The first golfer of the year costs you a couple $1 million to service, and everyone after that's a couple pennies. And you think about it, you got to have the golf course there, right? No matter kind of how many people are coming out. So it very much is a volume business, and we've been able to prove that as we've built throughout the years.
And the hours, what are the hours of the?
Basically, if it's daylight, we're open.
Okay.
That's right. Then we even go past. Then we even
And
go
movie
further.
night. All right.
And for Ms. Nelson, I believe it was on your presentation, it was number 8. You mentioned something about a surplus, and I just wanted to hear that one more time.
So Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, while we're looking for the slide, essentially, we're required to have 25% of our operating budget in reserve. So 10%, I always get it backwards, 10% for economic, 15% for disaster, or flip it around. When we actually have a reserve, a surplus of reserves, we've exceeded that. We might have 30% or 40%. And when we have that surplus, when we have had that surplus and still do, that's when we've been able to increase our investment in the course, as well as pay off our debt. So it varies from year to year depending on revenue versus expense, if that helps. But every year our budget increases, just like the general fund budget increases, the reserve requirement increases. So 25% of $1 million or 25% of $2 million. So that's the other thing we work through and try to figure out. When we have a capital budget, if we don't spend all those funds in that one fiscal year, we roll those funds into the new capital budget for the next year, and we adjust our numbers based on, so sometimes money goes back to reserve, and sometimes, in this case, this year, we're pulling from that reserve. Our savings account is the best way to think about it, to help pay for additional things we can do this year, because we have more in the savings account than we need.
Got it. That pretty much sums it up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Nielsen. And then you.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. It answered a lot of questions for me. One thing I'm still curious about is whether the reservation system tracks, or we have the ability to figure out how many unique visitors versus rounds are played to try to see if there's, what the patterns are, whether you have few very, very, very committed golfers or you have a lot of people that are, and how that's changed over time with your demographic shift.
Yeah, so it does to a certain extent. Fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people come in and pay for 4 players, right? So we're not able to always track to that individual when that happens. But we do track because we do have resident rates and non-resident rates. And so that alone, and the residence is the tri-county resident rate. So through that alone, we are able to at least track a little bit of who's coming from out of town and playing and who's not. We're about 53% resident. So we get quite a few from outside of the area. Now tournaments falls into that non-resident area, even if residents are playing in the tournaments that are out there. So that's a little bit of a skewed number, but that is something we track. I don't have all the statistics in front of me, but we do track it as carefully as we can.
Yeah, and whether we have the data or not, do you believe that the trend of whether the person who plays every day versus once a week versus once a month versus once a year, has that trend changed at all with time and generations?
Yes, meaning the middle group, right? So if I said, over here I have the multiple times a week, and over here I have the once or twice a year, that group in between is where our growth has come. The person that plays somewhere between, once a month and 3 times a month. That's where we have had the most of our growth come. We've always kind of had that core golfer and that very occasional golfer. It's that middle golfer where we've seen most of our growth industry-wide.
Do you attribute that to anything of like casual tournaments or fantasy sports becoming more popular or anything of that nature, or just like natural demographic changes?
I think it's probably all of the above, right? I think it really is that experience opportunity. I think as an industry, we've tried hard to embrace a change. I was in the industry in 97 through 01, which was considered the Tiger boom, right? When Tiger Woods came on the scene and everyone started playing golf, and the National Golf Foundation said, build a golf course a day and you still won't have enough, and they were wrong. And so I experienced the downturn. The difference this time compared to that time, back then, I think we did everything as an industry to tell people to go away. You don't belong here. This time we've said, no, you do belong here. Music on the golf course is okay, right? It's okay to accept different styles of dress out on the golf course. And we still have to be respectful, right? But as an industry, we're embracing new people to the game much better than we did back in 97 through 01.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I'm not a golfer, so I love the community outreach part of this presentation as well. I think that's excellent. Keep that up. That's a great thing. And the baseball, Savannah Banana, trends that are looking at sports alternative ways that bring new people is excellent. One last thing, would you mind elaborating on some more of that environmental stewardship that you guys do, how things like stormwater is managed on the property, or, the trees and the grounds and the wildlife? You had some photos of some wildlife encounters on there.
Yeah, so I mean, I won't be able to go into all the specifics, right? We have teams that really focus more on the science piece of it. I think the most important thing is it's something we consider in the hiring of our superintendents. It's something that they receive in their training from us as a company, is that golf course conditions and being environmentally conscious, they don't have to work against each other, right? And I think a lot of people always thought, no, just pour more chemicals into the golf course and that's how you're going to get your golf course green and have the best golf course conditions. And there's a lot of other ways to do that. It's also okay, and it's important to look at water conservation, for instance. And there's opportunities where, we want to make sure the greens are getting the most water, not the most water, the right amount of water, right? Where maybe some out of play areas, you can take the water down a little bit. You can consider some areas and removing them out of irrigation to try to be sensitive to those type of things. A lot of it's education too. The reality is golf courses use less chemicals per square foot than most people's front lawn, right? Because we are much more conscious about how we put them out there, but people don't realize that, right? Now, granted, it's a lot of acreage, right? So I'm not saying that there isn't a fair amount of fertilizer that goes out there. But in Santa Barbara, it's really been kind of easy because of what the city's approach was already. Some cities we've gone into and said, we don't want to use this chemical or we don't want to take this approach. Here it was kind of required, but it matched up really well with us.
Thank you. And then is there any, specifically though, wildlife encounters and the, habitat that that large acreage provides? Is there an approach there?
Absolutely. And so that, one of the things, you're talking about critter cards there, right? And those are things that we put out on the golf carts as education. We periodically will put them out there, and it's just education of the wildlife that's out there on each individual golf course. It is amazing how much wildlife calls our golf courses home. And some of our golf courses, we do things like partner with the Boy Scouts to put bird boxes out on the golf course. Other places, you look at trees, and there might be a dead tree that's not a safety risk, and you can leave it standing because it'll actually become a nesting spot for birds. So that's the type of things that we encourage our staffs to do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Price.
So first of all, thank you very much for the good work Coursco has done. We have the data to back this up from our most recent player satisfaction survey, but I've heard multiple times from the players group that I interact with on the Golf Course Advisory Committee, and also from people that visit, that we have outstanding greens and absolutely the best greens of any municipal golf course in the region. So your hard work and focus to things like watering really makes a difference, and it's obvious. I did have a couple questions. So recently you held the Coursco golf tournament. Do you remember how our team placed there?
Up in Pullman, Washington?
Correct, yes.
I believe second.
We did extremely well, yes. So that was made up of our golfers who were invited to play. So thank you very much for hosting that. It was everyone that attended had a great time.
Okay, be impressed I remembered that, okay?
And then secondly, Tina, if you wouldn't mind, could you go into a little bit of detail about how the Player Improvement Fund is steered, like who makes the decision around how that money is spent and what it is spent on?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, the Players Improvement Fund is $1 from every full-priced paid round that is specifically designated for course improvements, capital course improvements on the golf course. Coursco, we administer a survey multiple times a year to golfers that are on our mailing list and survey them from their perspective of what type of capital improvement would you like to see happen at the Santa Barbara Golf Course. And they have a menu of options, and then they rank them in order of their preference. Largely, the responses across the board are for improved tee boxes, bunkers, and greens. Greens, I think, is number one, with tee boxes and bunkers right behind. So we gather all that information from the players at the golf course. We present that data to the Golf Advisory Committee to say this is what the golfers are saying. They make their recommendations based on the feedback that they receive from the clubs that they represent and from the community at large. And then that information is presented to Coursco and to Director Zachary. And as we look at what the capital needs are at the golf course and what the plan is for that year, we do have a multi-year capital improvement plan, 10 years, and we revisit it every 2 years, so there's always a plan in place for that. And then those funds ultimately are approved by Director Zachary for capital reinvestment in the golf course for those improvements.
And I'd also, again, like to point out that our greens are fantastic, and it is a recurring theme that it is bunkers, greens, and boxes throughout that survey every year. That's just what the golf players want. So thank you. I did want to kind of move on to, there's currently a closed driving range at the golf course. The reason being it faces houses, and there was an issue where the balls were actually going over the street and going into the houses. Have y'all done any more feasibility work, had any more thoughts about what to do with that space?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, yes, that's part of the capital plan for this year, is to do a request for proposal for a master plan to redesign the driving range. So that will be a multi-year project, but it starts first with design. So we'll be going out to get that design process established. Coursco will be supporting us through that process, and we will be doing that pretty soon. That's probably going to happen within the next 2 months.
Thank you very much.
All right. I don't see any other questions. Obviously, you guys are doing a great job, and I guess what I find really, what I really like is seeing all the community, non-traditional collared shirt stuff going on. Golf Channel, by the way, is a very big feature in my household. So I'm very, very big feature in my household. So I'm, well aware of industry-wide the outreach to try to bring the next generations of golfers in, and I'm really encouraged to see the work that you all are doing. I actually would be curious to know, of all these non-traditional things, do you see a steady, any kind of feed from these kinds of events into the more traditional rounds?
Definitely in our junior programming.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen that, and this goes back over the last 20 years. Once we get into a golf course and we start doing things like movie nights, for instance, that we do here, some places we do family fun nights, our junior participation always spikes because we just knock down that barrier of intimidation, right? It's not, oh, that's the golf course. It's, oh, no, I remember. I went and saw Finding Nemo there. Yeah, I'll do a golf clinic this summer. And so ultimately, it's not an immediate return, right? But in the long term, you build your junior golf, you build for the future.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, the one thing I would say is, to the degree that, and I don't know how many people are out there that would want to be playing golf but don't have the resources to play golf, to the degree that we can help facilitate people who don't necessarily, it's not the first thing that they think of, and they don't necessarily have the resources for what can be very expensive kit. What can be done to help them get into the game is something I think, we should be supporting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think with that was our last agenda item. So we may adjourn this meeting and see you all next month.